Thank you for this introduction. And thank you all for attending our talk. So as you said, we are former iGEMers, so we participated to the competition in 2017, so 3 years ago, as part of the iGEM IONIS team. So from my part, now I'm actually doing a PhD in Scotland at the University of Dundee. And to sum up my project, I'm studying pregnancy complications and trying to find new ways to model the placenta in vitro. And I'm currently doing my second year.
Yeah, and for me, I'm also doing a PhD. I'm in Germany, Max Planck Institute of Terrestrial Microbiology in Marburg. And I am studying the metabolism of Escherichia coli. Yeah. So we may now begin. So this is first of all the team. So we were part of the iGEM IONIS 2017 team, hosted at the Subbiotech, which is a French biotechnology engineering school in Paris. And so we were a team of around 20 people, and we worked on a project called Softer Shock. So let's first start with the chronology of the project, because we thought it could be a good idea to give you an idea, guys, how our project was going and what was the time scale we had. So we had roughly 9 months to do the project. We started in December 2016 by forming the team, and it ended up in November 2017 by the Giant Jamboree event, as you may all know. So the first thing we did upon the team formation was directly to search for funds for the project, because our economical status was quite compromised. We didn't have that much money for the project, so we had to search for money as much as possible. And we had a specific team in our team that was in charge of this. And we started to do the project brainstorming. That was before starting all the work that was involved in the project that Agathe will mention later on. So we finished the brainstorming around April and May. So it took us around 5 months to choose a final project, and because we had a lot of different ideas. Agathe will mention these different ideas later on. And we started then preparing the lab work and made the final project choice, right? Then in July 2017, so it took us 1 month in total, we had our first PCR success, so that was already a good point for us. So it took us a lot of time to actually succeed getting our fragments and plasmids amplified. So just to give you an idea how we had that nothing was really perfect for us from the start. In October 2017, we kept on going and we validated a proof of concept in the lab work. So there was a good point for us just before the Giant Jamboree. Actually, 2 weeks only before leaving for Boston, we had one of our biobricks that was working properly. So it took us only really a long time. And important thing is that we did most of our lab work in La Paillasse, which is a laboratory located in Paris. And this laboratory is open access in a way to anyone that, of course, can pay for it. It provides second-hand equipment to anyone that wants to do a laboratory project. So it's more for do-it-yourself biology stuff. So it's a very interesting framework for working. So we didn't do lab work in our uni. We did it in La Paillasse. So in the end, at the Giant Jamboree, we went there and we presented successfully, and we obtained happily our gold medal. So we were, of course, very proud of it. Now I will leave Agathe to cover the brainstorming of our project. How did we manage to find this idea, and how much time did it take us?
Yeah, so I think it was one of the most difficult part, and most especially the longest part of the project, to actually choose and agree on the same idea to start with. So how it worked for us, we basically started with this really scientific core part. So which plasmid we wanted to make, because we were looking at the literature and we came across those really cool systems that were responding to temperatures. So we found out that some organisms were able to transcript some genes only in cold temperatures or only in warm temperatures, and we found it really cool. So quite early on, we decided to go with making a plasmid that would respond to temperatures. But the difficult part was actually to find an application for this plasmid, so to find an idea that would be useful. So we started to look for ideas, every member of the team on our side, to come up with different solutions. And we found a lot of very, very different ideas. So we thought about, for example, applying to food testing as a control to see if the cold chain has been broken during the processing of the food. We thought about a way to measure wind force through a wind turbine, so having like a color gradient depending on the wind force. We also thought about drug delivery as a way to deliver the drug depending on the body temperature locally, for example. Also for research, so for example, to monitor the temperatures of the incubators or the medium, make sure that the temperature stays still across time, and even simply as an education tool. So we thought it would be a good tool to show people how genetic modification works. So really have various ideas, and it took quite a long time to agree on which one would be the most useful and the most catchy idea. But in the end, as we are French, we thought that the most useful application would be to protect wine. So we decided to apply it to protect vineyards against extreme temperatures, so both extreme cold and hot temperatures.
Yeah, so I will go a little bit more into detail to this aspect. So as you might know, we French are very proud of our vineyards, and they are everywhere in the country, and they are an extremely precious resource for our economy. The big problem is that recently, as we saw in the headlines back in the day when we were brainstorming, you had extreme climatic events that were compromising the cultivation of this of grapevine in France. So you had episodes of heat wave that was, of course, damaging the plants really badly and their quality. And at the same time, you had frost. So it is called spring frost. So it happens during spring. And these episodes usually happen around April, May. But with the climate change, they tend to happen earlier. And because this is the moment for grapevine to start budging, so to start growing, the earlier episode of spring frost really compromised a lot of cultivation for grapevines. So we had, for the same resource, so grapevine, a problem at high and low temperature. So this is what we thought could be a good application for our project Softershock. Also, another point is that this problem with grapevine is shared with many countries around the world. So it's not only for France, it could be applied for a lot of different countries. So that's why it was, I think, we thought a good application. So what did we think about? We thought about using a bacteria that would carry this thermoresponsive plasmid. And this bacteria would be spread out on the grapevine, so on the leaves and on the fruit, or the bulges, depending on the time we want to apply it. And the bacteria would, in response to cold or in response to heat wave, secrete, so in response to heat, a compound that would reflect sunlight on the surface. So we had different ideas of compound for that. You can ask us at the end if you want. And a compound that limit the development of ice crystals at low temperature. So it would be a two-in-one solution to treat both heat wave and both spring frost events in one product would protect the grapevine. So that was really the main point behind Softer Shock.
So now just to sum up the different aspects of the project, because we tried to include as many aspects as we could beyond the scientific part. So first of all, of course, there was the lab experiments, which took a lot of efforts in this project. So in a matter of time, as we didn't have so much time, as you know, we decided that our goal would be to show that the cold system and the hot system work separately in two different plasmids first as a proof of concept before eventually combining them in a single plasmid. So that was our goal in the lab. And then we also spent quite a lot of time on bioinformatics modeling. We were lucky to have our school advisor who was specialized in this field of bioinformatics, so he could give us a lot of help for this part. And it was actually useful to have this bioinformatics modeling at different times of the project. First of all, before even starting the experiments, because we were able to model the 3D structure of the protein we wanted to modify, so we could predict the effects of the different elements we wanted to add on the protein function to make sure that it wasn't affecting it. So it actually helped a lot to design the plasmids. And afterwards, it was also useful to model the RNA structure, because basically our system was relying on secondary structures of the RNA. So we were able to predict how the secondary structure would behave under different temperatures and better understand what were the mechanisms. So then applied design. So it was more a theoretical part and was basically answering all the questions about how we would go from our bacterial system to the real world application on the vineyards. So we had to do a lot of research and to come up with ideas of which compounds we would make the bacteria secrete to protect the vineyards, also how we would apply it on the plants. And also a very important part was the biosafety, as we were planning to apply modified organisms in the open environment. So we had to really come up with concrete solutions to contain our product in the nature and to ensure that it's the most safe possible. And also for human practices, we spent quite a lot of time on this part as well. So to continue on this problematic of the modified organisms in the nature, we actually did the real work of understanding what were the regulations in France, but also around the world towards the use of GMOs, because we found it really interesting to see the difference between different countries and where our project could actually take place. So we interviewed quite a lot of people, both iGEM teams or experts or winemakers, to see what were the regulations. And we decided to create an interactive map. So basically we could click on a country and see in an easy manner the different regulations around GMOs, which we found were not so straightforward to find. So yeah, that was a project. And also we did some public outreach, especially in schools, where we went several times to explain what were GMOs, how we modify organisms. And we actually created a card game for children, which had a lot of success. It turns out that children quite liked it, so yeah.
So if you're doing the iGEM now, we assume, unless you were absolute geniuses, that you went into troubles and you will still go into trouble before the Great Jamboree, Giant Jamboree, sorry. The thing is, you have to know that us, despite in the end having the gold medal, despite succeeding in the lab and other aspects of the project, we went through a lot of troubles. So the goal now is to show what we went through, so you can maybe relate, and how we dealt with these problems. And we hope that this can help you on your side to deal with your own problems. So first of all, we had, as I mentioned before, it took us more than 1 month for the PCR to actually work, and it took us even more months for the cloning to work as well. So it took us a lot of time for us to actually build the plasmids, make the experiments for the proof of concept. So it was very difficult for us to, in terms of lab work, we lost a lot of time, and that was quite discouraging. Another thing is that, as Agathe mentioned, we developed the heat plasmid and the cold plasmid at the same time in parallel, and it turned out that the heat shock construction, so the heat construction did not work, which is a problem in a way for our project, of course. Also, we went to KU Leuven meetup, so it was a meetup that was organized by the KU Leuven team, iGEM team, where a lot of different European teams were invited, and we presented there. And it turned out that our presentation was quite mediocre, to be honest. We agreed on that. That was not good, so it was also very discouraging for us. The thing is, you will see that in the end, it was very useful for us to use this training as a resource.
Yeah, I think this is one of the most challenging part we encountered with our project, was the opinion about the project in France, at least, as we were intending to spread modified organisms in the open environment. So it's really not easy to go and talk to people about this kind of project, because there is a very high fear towards GMOs, of course, and especially when it's about applying it to the plants in the environment. So we spent a lot of time trying to find solutions to find biosafety mechanisms. And it was not easy, especially I think the most marking event was we participated to a radio podcast, and it was very difficult to explain our project in a very short amount of time in the good way, so that people understand that it's actually a theoretical project and it's a part of the iGEM competition, which people don't usually know that well. So we were talking with winemakers, and we were basically trying to explain why our biological solution would be useful. And it didn't receive a lot of enthusiasm from the people in this radio show. So that was a really challenging experience. Also, I think this is quite an unavoidable problem, but as soon as you work in a group of people, you have internal conflicts. Because of course we had quite a large team. We were a bit more than 20 people, and each of us had our own ideas, our own way of working. And so there were some conflicts between people. And also we didn't have access to a lot of very good equipment for experiments first in the lab. But as Paul said, we were in an open access lab, so we had access to secondhand equipment, and we had the basic things that were enough to drive our project, but it would have been much more, much faster and much easier if we had access to more advanced equipment.
Yeah, so now we presented the troubles we went through, and how did we dealt with these problems, and how did we use them for our own sake. So regarding the lab work, it was very difficult, as I said, but I assume you guys have also the same type of problems than us, some of you. And the only thing I could really tell you is that to remediate that, we kept on trying no matter what. we reviewed our strategies. So if you have something that doesn't work, just sit down together, review everything. So for example, a PCR doesn't work, or just look at your primers, really look in depth into every detail, identify the problem together, and really accept that you have lost time, and order new solutions, make up new solutions, and move on. You know, do not despair over a failed experiment. Just keep on trying. Everyone fails in science, it happens. And so regarding the e-chuck construction that didn't work, hopefully we had backup solutions. So as Agathe said, we had the good idea to make the call and the e-chuck response separately first in 2 different plasmids, so that if one works and the other not, we have one of them working. So this was a really important point, because in the end the e-chuck didn't work, but the cold chuck solution, the cold chuck plasmid worked, and this is why we got the gold medal. So this is a really important point of the lab work, and that made us succeed. So regarding KU Leuven presentation, we got a lot of backups from the people and the teams that were present there, and we will never thank enough KU Leuven and all the people that went to this meetup, because they gave us so much feedback. They made us understood that we could do much better. So sometimes it's good to listen to other people, to the backups, and we really questioned our ways of doing the presentation, and we made it so that the Jan Jomboy presentation was much better. So we used the failure as a way to continue and to make something better.
So for the problematic of the domestic opinion we had towards our project, as I mentioned before, so we came up with as many solutions as we could to show, I think what was the most important was to show that we were aware that our project was challenging because of the regulations. And so we came up with kill switch strategies and physical containment strategies. So to really show that we thought about how we can limit the risks of our project and how we could make it as safe as possible, even if, of course, it's still a biological solution. So 100% safe never exists. So yeah, I think we realized that the most important in the iGEM was just to show that you are aware of the limitations of your project and the regulations towards the project. And also to keep in mind that because in your country it's this way, it's not always this way in all the countries. Like in United States, obviously the regulations towards GMO, it's really different. So the response to our project was actually very different when we presented it in other countries, to other countries' people. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And at the end, it was a very good experience because it turned out into a whole human practice project as we tried to find information on the regulation in all the countries. It was actually a good thing at the end because it made us really seek information and create this interactive map, which we found really interesting. So this might sound a bit cliche, but I think for the human relations problem, the key is communication, of course. I think it's really important that all together the members are meeting regularly to really be aware of what's happening with everyone. And then it depends on every person's way of working. But for our project, we quite naturally organized into smaller teams. So we were a bit more than 20 at the beginning, and we organized in small groups of 3 or 4 people with precise objectives. So like some people were dedicated to the bioinformatics part, some other to the lab, others to the human practice. So we really defined the objective of different people, and I think it made it easier to meet in smaller groups because then you can really discuss among each other easier than meeting with 20 people. So I think that's what helped. And so for the low budget problem, we tried to seek help as much as we could. So we had the chance to collaborate with another team in Paris, the UPMC, which kindly gave us access to some spectrophotometer in the lab, which was a very good help. And for the money, we participated to fundraising events. So we tried to raise as much money as we could by creating a crowdfunding platform, and we also participated to events such as races or those kind of events to try to raise as much money as we could to go to Boston to finance the whole equipment and the whole project, which was quite a lot of money to raise.
Yeah, so another part of the talk is about how do we actually look us now that we are away from the project 3 years after. How do we look back at our project and what do we think about it? For me, I always look back, and I am quite, I think with the years I became more and more skeptical regarding the feasibility of projects, and it's clear for me that if today someone comes to me and presents me a project like SofterShock, and I would never support a project like this, to be honest. I know it sounds quite negative, but for me it's so complex and so complicated that only us 3 years before, without the actual capacity of judging if a project is unthinkable or not, without this, only us would have been could do a project like this. 3 years after, it's not possible anymore. And that's kind of the beauty of iGEM, according to me, is that you tend, during iGEM, you don't have the same capacity for judging the feasibility of a project and what are the different problems you can run into, how much time you need, how much money, and is it worth it or not. So you just do it because you want to exploit the beauty of science in a way. And that's the greatness of iGEM, is that people that participate usually have this kind of naive feeling, and you have so many different projects that are extremely interesting because they are not held back by this skepticism. And so I think that's when I look back at a project, I really think about this, like why, how iGEM is beautiful in this way. You know? Agathe, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think to come back to this idea of the regulations and having GMOs in the nature, and it's like later on in a career, I would never start a project like this because it's just not doable for now in France. And I think, as you said, the advantage of the iGEM is that you can have those like less restrictions and have any idea you want, even if it's not realistic today, and even if you couldn't really do this project in the real life. I think it's a great opportunity to be able to just realize the ideas that you have, no matter what, and be more creative, because then in the real world, if I can say, you will have more restrictions, and I think you become more skeptical, and I think you just have more restrictions than in the iGEM. So it's a good opportunity.
So another thing, according to me, is always also look back at the project and what experiments we did, and every time I'm questioning why the hell did we do this experiment at this moment? Why did we use this protocol? I'm always in awe on how questionable the science that we did was in terms of reproducibility, in terms of results that we got. It was so, in a way, unprofessional, but that's normal. We were not professional. But the thing is, I judged the way we were doing lab work very harshly 3 years ago, but we had such a low experience in molecular biology, such a low experience in how science works, that the thing that we managed to do these experiments and get in the end a result is quite exceptional. So yeah, I have a harsh judgment on how we did the science back in the days, but at the same time, I would not be able to do the science I do today without making all the mistakes I did in the iGEM. So to be honest, I think iGEM is really here for that. You have an inexperience in the lab. Everyone has to start somewhere, and you get this experience by doing these adventures. And this is so precious for your later work, especially if you want to do PhD. To have an experience like iGEM, you do all the mistakes you can think about in this time frame, and after that you go out and you are much better.
Yeah, I think because we are still we are both doing PhDs now, so we have access to like we have more experience, experimental experience, and also we are in like good labs, so we are surrounded by experts, and we have a lot of equipment. And so sometimes when I think about the iGEM project, and I sometimes when I'm struggling in my PhD, I think back about iGEM, and I think that despite all those wrong protocols and those really bad equipment and everything, we still managed to make one of our plasmid work. And it makes me more confident today, because I think if we were able to do this at this time without any experience, then I can be able to do things now with the proper equipment and everything.
So another thing is how ethically I look at the project. So my vision of GMOs has changed, has adapted drastically during the iGEM. To be honest, I would not support anymore, and I'm talking 3 years after, a project like ours. I would be against it. And there are actually projects that, like, there are companies in the US that try to do something quite close. If you are curious, guys, it's called Join Bio. It's a spin-off from Ginkgo, if I remember. And they try the kind of the same. They will spray, they will take organisms from the soil, they will modify them, and they will use them as a biofertilizer for the plants, right? So kind of the same. And I look at this project with much more, with a much more critical aspect, because I'm always, when I look at project now, I'm always very skeptical regarding how, what bad outcome can come up from such a project. What could go wrong if these organisms somehow escape from the biocontainment strategies? And the thing is that no one has any idea, and it's impossible to contain entirely modified organisms, except if you are so in open field. And so that's why my vision of GMOs has changed. I am for now quite against their use in open field because of the biocontainment aspect, but I support them in a contained setup, so in bio factories, for example, biotechnology, white biotech, industrial biotech, because they are contained in reactors and you have total control of the population. So that's how I see the project now. I'm very critical regarding the ethical question. But this is really something I had, like, it took me a lot of time to have this judgment. And yeah, that's how I see the project now regarding the ethical aspect.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So, Agathe, you want to?
Yeah. So I think it's also joining what we said about the scientific visibility and relevance, is how we managed to have all those ideas about what we could do and come up with so many different solutions. And I think I'm quite proud of how we had those ideas at this time when we were still students and still learning about biology and synthetic biology. Like, I didn't know anything about it before the iGEM. So I think it's a really good timing to do this kind of competition, because you're discovering the field, and so you don't really put any filters against what you could do. You just have your ideas and hope and have hope for realizing them. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think we tend to lose creativity as we become more and more skeptical, and I don't know if it's really a good thing. I think that you could look at your project maybe in 3 years, and all of you, and ask yourself the same question: did I lose my creativity because I kind of conformize myself to the expectations of the field? I don't know. Sometimes I ask myself this kind of question, and it makes me a little bit sad, because I would never come up with a project like Software Shock nowadays. And this type of ideas that we had is quite inspirational. And it's true that when I am looking at new ideas, I always look back at the project, and yeah, sometimes you have to be creative, and this is the beauty.
Yeah. I think at this time you're a bit naive, but that's also what is good, that you're naive, so you don't have any filters and you just try.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Agathe, you want to start with this one also?
Yeah, I think it's just because when I knew I was talking today about the iGEM experience, and it's quite a long time now, it's been 3 years, so I came back to like the website and to just as a reminder of what we did, because it's been quite a long time. And actually I was really impressed by everything we did. There were so many things I forgot about. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we did this interactive map. I completely forgot about that, and those kind of things. And I remember at the time, we were not negative all the time, but we were, I think, quite focused on the problematics we had and the issues. So I remember being very worried about, are we going to have this medal? Are we going to make a good impression in Boston and everything? But 3 years after, when I come back to the project, I can really see everything we achieved. And I think it's quite impressive. So it's really easy to focus on the bad things at the moment of the competition. But actually I think it's better to just focus on what you did and what you achieved, because then I'm pretty sure that you will be impressed as well in 3 years when you look back and see what you can do as a student in a competition like this.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Yeah.
And that's just to say that after the iGEM, so I did an internship, then the PhD. And when I look back at my whole experiences I had in the different projects, I'm really happy to have done the iGEM, because I realized it was the only opportunity I have to really start a project from scratch and really be able to go from an idea to a result, which I never had the opportunity to do apart from that. In internships, usually you arrive, there is already a project going on, and you arrive kind of in the middle of the project and you continue what other people did before. So I found it a really good opportunity to be able to do everything from scratch. It was the only time I was able to do that.
Yeah, I agree also on this. It's the same for me. When I came to my master's thesis, I also took up a project that was, it was not something from scratch. For my PhD, it's a little bit different, but at the same time, it's really a unique opportunity that we had. And yeah, we are very proud of it. And I think all of you should also be proud of your achievements. Of course, we still have some months to go before the Gen Jamboree, but yeah, just we hope that in some years you will be you will look back and have the same feeling as us, no matter what. Yeah. So now, really, in terms of in our daily lives, after the iGEM, what did the iGEM bring to us in our professional life? Did it help us in the end? Was it just a project and then you don't talk about it after? It doesn't bring anything new on the table, doesn't help you after your career? No, for sure. For me and for Agathe as well, it was very different. On my side, especially, it brought to me a considerable network. Really, I knew so many people because of this competition. So we interviewed actually for applied design many scientists to ask them their opinion about our project. These people we keep in contact with, of course. Also from the people in your team, you know, it binds you to them in a way that you will not really forget about them for the rest of your life in a way, and it creates a strong bond with them. And this bond can really be precious later on. And as for me, especially, you will see, I think, and with the years that come, there are actually more and more iGEMers and ancient iGEMers out there in different companies. And I don't know if you have this feeling, but in a way, when you have done the iGEM and you meet someone else that has done the iGEM, there is kind of a fictional bond that is created between you because you share the same experience. And this played a huge role actually for my enrollment as a master student in a company in Denmark. So I did a master in industry, and the company was called Biosynthia. It's still existing, and all of the people there, they did the iGEM at some point in their life. The CSO, so the scientific director of the company, did the iGEM, I think, 2009. And of course, this plays a huge role if you want to enroll somewhere, and the person that needs to recruit you has done the iGEM as well. I think this is really, really, like it's kind of a fictional network, and it can play a huge role for your future career. So this is really an important point, I think, that the iGEM can bring to you. Agathe, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, in my case, I really changed the field. I'm not really into the synthetic biology anymore. So I would say that concretely, I'm not relying on the iGEM network, but I still see what you said about that it creates a link between iGEMers, because it happens in even here in Scotland, in the little city, that I meet people who did iGEM, and when I wear my iGEM sweatshirt, they quickly say, "Oh, iGEM, I did iGEM too," and so it really creates like a community, I would say. So yeah, even if I'm not in the synthetic biology field anymore, it really helped me during interviews and to find jobs or applications for a PhD, because I realized that almost every interview I had for internships or for the PhD, no matter what was the question they asked, usually the iGEM came to my mind very quickly, because you can valorize so many aspects of it, even beyond just biology or technical skills. But you can talk about iGEM for teamwork, for international experience, for autonomy. And so yeah, I remember sometimes they were asking questions about, for example, can you talk about a time when you had problems and how you solved them? I talk about iGEM, or talk about, I don't know, what kind of personality you are, how do you like working in a team? And always the iGEM came to my mind, because I think you get to know yourself so well during this experience. So I think you can always valorize any kind of skills.
Yeah, it's the same for me. When you have an interview, when I had an interview for my different PhDs that I tried to get, and for my master's thesis, it was the same reflex because it's such a strong experience that can teach you so many things. Because as we mentioned, you start from scratch, then you really do all by your own the whole project. You can learn so many different things, and this can be so precious for the CV. It's such a nice resource. And let's be frank, if you have someone that has done iGEM and someone that has not done it, I think people will favorize the person that has done iGEM because it's such a strong commitment. It's a fantastic experience for the people that participate. And so yeah, it's an extremely valuable resource for the CV. But you have to train yourself to valorize it. Of course, when you're in an interview, never forget what you've done during the iGEM, because it's so many arguments that can help you getting a job. So yeah. So this is especially so I chose here the gate, the gate of the Castle of Versailles on purpose. So it's a beautiful gate, and behind it there is something even more beautiful. And I think that's what the iGEM is represented by, because iGEM gives a portal to synthetic biology that is really nice. It's such a nice way of getting into this this field to learn what is synthetic biology, how can you use it, how complex it is, what are the different applications of synthetic biology, what is the community of synthetic biology. It's such a nice way of getting introduced to this this field, and it can give you so many different ideas for later on what you want to do, and open up so many different how would you say, opportunities. And actually, for me, my master's thesis, especially, I did it in industrial biotech. And without the iGEM, without synthetic biology and getting interested in this field, I would have never known this field by myself. This really helped me to find new possibilities of jobs to do. Yeah, I think it's really a fantastic way of getting to know synthetic biology.
Actually, I was just told that we need to wrap up the presentation because the next speaker is waiting. But sure. I think to sum up, you can always contact us on our email addresses as we wrote them at the beginning, I think. If you have any further questions, because I think we could talk about it for a very long time. Yeah. But if you have very specific questions, you can always contact us and we'll try to answer them. We're always happy to talk about our experience, so don't hesitate. Yeah, I will just quickly talk about the Association for Synthetic Biology very quickly. So for the French people out there, or French-speaking people, I am part of the Association Française de Biosynthèse, AFBS, and so we are very young. We were born in January, and we are looking for people to help us develop our different missions. So public outreach, we have a blog that talks about synthetic biology and try to make it accessible to everyone. We try to develop iGEM in France, and we try to develop a resource for iGEM teams in France or internationally with a collaboration with our European partners, so that any team that starts with iGEM in France has a lot of different resources to help them to make their project and to help them understand synthetic biology better. And we are also having an entrepreneurship mission that will help some iGEMers and people in synthetic biology to set up their startups. So if you guys are interested in the AFBS and to join us for these different missions, you can find our website at this link. You can also contact me on my personal email address, and you can also find the contact form on the website. We also are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, and LinkedIn if you are interested. So sorry for the
the end of presentation was quite steep. We hope you liked the presentation. We want to thank, of course, the iGEM IONIS team for inviting us to this meetup. It was a good opportunity, and we really hope that you benefited from this talk. And yeah, if you want to talk and you had questions, don't hesitate to communicate with us. I'm going to put here again our mail address. So yeah, don't hesitate to send us mail, questions, concerns you have about your project. We will gladly answer anything. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Agathe and Paul, for this very interesting talk of your project from beginning to end and all the advice. So yeah, as they said, you can contact them on their email address if you would like to talk about their project or have some advice, or even talk about, I guess, professional, how they're living their PhD and everything. So thank you, both of you. It was very interesting.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah. So I guess we leave the conversation.
Yeah, you can unshare your screen.
Yeah. So how does this work? Oh yeah, yeah. No.
Okay.